Welcome to Confirmation Bias, presented by the League Ambassadors.
I'm Ambassador Kenny Ken, and Spike Lee is a troll. That is my confirmation bias.
I'm Ambassador Junior Blue, and sometimes when you stand up for something, the powers that be will sit you down, and that's my confirmation bias.
I'm Ambassador Dad, and that's my confirmation bias.
Colin Kaepernick donated $50K to both Meals on Wheels and #LoveArmy for Somalia. And the man doesn't have a job. That's my confirmation bias.
And I'm Ambassador Chef Curry with the shot. Dear Mr. Craig Hodges, you are no longer alone in pro sports purgatory. And that is my confirmation bias.
Welcome to Confirmation Bias, brought to you by the League Ambassadors. First, I want to remind everybody to go to our social media handles at the League AM. So follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube page. And for everyone watching us on Facebook Live right now, don't forget to send in your questions, which we will answer at the end of the show.
How do you spell social?
I know how to spell social.
Oh, a better question is, Les, what are you sipping on?
Now, let's get to today's hot topic. Mr. Colin Kaepernick. We are wrapping up the second week of free agency, and Colin Kaepernick does not have a job. He doesn't even have anybody looking at him. And there's certainly some teams out there that could use his services. Now, my question for you guys is it because he kneeled all last season? Or is it because he kind of had a noodle arm last season? Which one is it? Omar?
Well, as the man said who couldn't pronounce the word right, it's both.
It's both?
Without the T or the H. Now, I mean, if the man had transcendent talent, nobody would care. They would care, but he would get a job. He has not performed well enough for teams to look at him, and he's going to affect their bottom line, because there's a lot of fans who don't support him. So if it's no reason for me to look at you if, as a businessman, if you're going to damage my bottom line and you're not going to bring anything to my team. You're not going to put me over the top.
Yeah, I actually agree with Omar. I hate when I do that. But if you just look at the NFL, if you look at people like Ray Rice, who socked his wife on camera, he hasn't gotten a job yet. That was in 2013.
He went Captain Caveman.
Right, no, right. But people felt he was in decline, so he hadn't got a job. Mr. Greg Hardy probably was worse, but he didn't have that on tape. He kept getting a job. And then you got Joe Mixon mixing chicks up, breaking jaws. He's going to get drafted because he's young. So it has to do with what you can bring to the table on the field. I think the headache of all of the controversy behind him isn't worth what he can bring to the table.
So question, in 2014 was his best season. His stats were 3,300 yards, 60% completion, 19 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Last year in 12 games, he had 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. So my question is, he's seemed like what he was in 2014, if not better.
Yeah, what was his completion percentage, though?
It was 59% compared to 60%.
And so I think that the truth of the matter is that before Chip Kelly came to San Francisco last year, Colin Kaepernick was going to get cut. And he probably wasn't going to get another job after that. If so, it was going to be for the veterans minimum. He was going to be competing for a job. Chip Kelly, San Francisco hires Chip Kelly, kind of gives him new life. You know, we're all saying the same thing. I said Spike Lee is a troll because I think Spike Lee knows that. But why I feel like it's not helpful is because it's taking away from the meaningful conversation, which is what this man stood for and what he was protesting is legitimate. However, don't conflate the two issues. That's not why he doesn't have a job now. This isn't why Jay Cutler doesn't have a job right now. RG3 doesn't have a job right now. Ding! So, I feel like when you try to conflate, you know, one which is a very serious issue with another issue which doesn't have anything really to do with what his plight is, you're taking away from the overall message.
Kevin, what's your thoughts?
I get it. Kaepernick definitely struggled. He's been injured the last few years, but I can't sit here and act like the guy isn't being blackballed from the NFL. I mean, you look at the fact that he's getting into a back and forth with the president, him being who he is, and to give you, I'll be modest about it, at least 50% of the population disagrees with what Kaepernick is doing. I definitely think he deserves a second chance given the other quarterbacks in this league that have gotten a second chance. And his play towards the end of last season improved given he was on the least talented team in football. So I think it's more about the political stance than it is his actual ability on the field.
I do think he would have a job right now if he didn't take his political stance. But at the same time, he also knew what the consequences were when he did it, and he seems like he's willing to live with it.
I don't agree with that. He was on the verge of not having a job before Chip Kelly got there.
He wouldn't be a starter. He would have a job. He'd be on somebody's roster.
He'd be on a roster.
For what? Like he in 5 years hasn't figured out how to put touch on a pass. You guys remember what happened when they played against Arizona and Patrick Peterson literally, or was it Tyrann Mathieu? One of them literally was like, we knew what plays they were going to run just based off of the deficiencies of the quarterback. I mean, this guy is not good. He has not gotten better. He
hasn't gotten better. You're right. But there are other subpar career backup quarterbacks that have been in the league 10, 12 years. And he's, his fifth or sixth? You don't think he at least deserves that if it's based off of
no,
his talent?
especially deserve. No. That he does not deserve that because he's not good. He hasn't shown the aptitude necessary to be a productive quarterback in the NFL.
Ryan Mallett or Kaepernick right now if you were.
I would take Ryan Mallett. Ryan Mallett is a coach's son. He has the mental aptitude to play quarterback.
Mr. Sight Unseen?
Mr. Sight.
Two nicknames.
So yeah, I mean, does it make the decision easier for owners? Yes, I agree with that. It makes the decision easier for owners considering all that would come with having Colin Kaepernick on the team. But I think that, you know, one issue really doesn't have anything to do with the other. The truth of the matter is that Kaepernick is just not good enough. He's not.
Do you think he saw it coming, and that's why he said he would stand for the anthem this year?
No.
I think he saw it coming last year when he agreed to have his deal renegotiated down to take $7 million because that was the last multi-million dollar.
It was the last shot he had.
Yeah, it was the last shot he had, and that made it easier. I think for him. I think that made it easier for him to be like, you know what? I want to take the stand that I'm taking right now because I'm never going to have that chance.
And that's
again.
why I thought he took the stand because he saw the income.
Yeah, he saw the
why
income.
not take the stand?
Exactly.
I mean, so it's, and I don't see him out there. Cheerleading for a job either.
Yeah.
So, you know, like some people, they out there doing visits and whatever. I'm showing up at your doorstep. He's not doing that.
Yeah.
So
I feel like it's crazy how the media ran with the story of him kneeling, but like you talked about, I ain't getting any notifications about $50,000 donated to Meals on Wheels. So they're not showing that the same way they showed him kneeling.
Absolutely.
It was a positive story. Negative
I
sales.
don't know. I find it hard to believe at 29 years old, the guy, he can improve. Like, we're acting like he didn't play in the Super Bowl. Granted, he did lose to the second best team to ever exist in history, but that's all I'm saying.
What team was that? Can we? What team was that?
The 2012 Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, 2012. Okay, my bad. Thought you was talking about somebody else. Well, once again, let's bring up the president, Mr. Trump.
Uh-huh.
What do y'all think about him saying that the reason teams aren't signing Kaepernick is because they're afraid of a tweet from me?
I'm not going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Omar,
you got
it. Venture into that.
I'm sober.
I'll
What'd you say?
I'll jump in there. Let's keep it real. We've talked about it on this platform several times. The majority of NFL owners are middle-aged white dudes who, by the numbers,
Middle-aged.
Even older. It just proves my point that we all know who most of them voted for. So, to me, it is a racial issue. It's a political issue when they don't want their guy to get into to sign on someone who is either causing him issue or conflicting his stance. The guy's being blackballed. If Mike Glennon can get a job, you can tell me how Kaepernick can't. Stop it, man.
Church.
Competence. Quarterback competence. Let's move on to black versus blue.
Apropos.
Man, listen.
All right. We got Hope or Hype. Roger Federer. Man, this man missed most of last year with a knee injury. He's 35 years old, which is old in a young man's game of tennis. But he's come off winning the first two major tennis events of the season. He was the men's champion for the Australian Open, and then just this weekend, he cleaned up at Indian Wells. He's 6-0 against the top 10 guys. Hope or hype in terms of his career? Is this going to be is this a new life in his career, or is this just a momentary sort of phenomenon?
I think it's hope. It's how he plays. He has always been economical with how he plays, and you take that with his athleticism, it projects to a player who can play longer. Like, say, take Nadal and Djokovic. They ran, I think, an average of 2.6 kilometers a tennis match, and he's 1.6.
So he's more efficient.
So his efficiency.
Then you take his supreme skill. The man, he's an accurate server. He's one of those people who can serve it into your body. And serve it out wide, serve it straight down the tee. He does not change his toss. He does not change his delivery. Like, he has these things that will allow him to, like, just like a pitcher who has to change. He doesn't even really have to change because he's been doing this stuff, these things that allow him to be successful with his athleticism. And the problem with older players is the athleticism goes, injuries happen, and then you're not as good. But you add that stuff that makes him great anyway. It's more conducive to him being good as an older player.
Kevin.
Omar, did you get those notes from Ethan?
Hey, Kevin, I'm sipping with my pinky.
So let me ask you this: what was the difference, say, in 2014, 2015, where because he's always been economical in his game, but it seemed as if he
Not always. There was a point where he's serving volley almost every time.
Mm-hmm.
Then he stopped. For some reason, whatever reason he did, he stopped doing it. It was almost like he wanted to take some time off, save some time on those years. He's back to doing it more now, which may be the reason why he's more successful now.
Because he's reintroduced the serve and volley.
Yes.
I would say hope just for the simple fact that he's 35, and if you look at Agassi was 32, Ash was almost 32. And Sampras was 31 when they won their last major. And he's still doing it.
That's why I say it's hype for him. Because he's, it's not... it reminded me of Agassi when he made that last run to Wimbledon, and it was like he was well past his prime and didn't do anything after that. That's what this reminds me of. Same thing with Sampras. When he won his last major, he was past his prime, and it's crazy to think at 32 or 31 that you're past your prime already.
That's tennis.
And it's hype to me.
So you feel like at some point this year he's going to flame out? It won't continue.
If you talk to him, he's not 100% yet. He's still on the trail back. Okay.
I'd probably just give him hope because of who he beat. I mean, we can't act like Nadal hasn't been kicking his ass.
And again this year, to that point, like I said, he's 6-0 this year against the top 10.
Nadal's getting old quick too, though.
He's outlasting Nadal, Djokovic, Murray. He's it seems. Well, we'll see if he's outlasting them because there's a certain point in tennis where you just go downhill.
But I think your point about him changing his game is, I think that's because those players, particularly Nadal, Djokovic, are more power tennis players, and so will they then make the adjustment as they start to enter the backstretch of their career in the same way that Federer did? Hit or flop? The NCAA tournament, we've just come off of weekend 1, and now we're in the Sweet 16. 12 out of the 16 teams that are remaining are seeded 4th or better. No real Cinderellas. There have been a few mild upsets. I think the biggest upset, I would say, is the upset of the fact that the ACC is not as good as everyone thought that it was. There's only one team in the Sweet 16, that's North Carolina, that's in the remaining in the tournament. But has the tournament been a hit or a flop because of the fact that the highly rated teams are basically the ones that are remaining in the tournament?
I'd say it's a hit. It doesn't matter that there aren't any Cinderella stories. There's been good basketball, way better basketball than the regular season of the NBA. I think those games were entertaining. But yeah, I think it's a hit. I mean, they pretty much got it right with the exception of what's the damn team that they should have had seated lower? It's failing me right now. I think they were a 10 seed. They should have been lower than that, but they wound up losing because they had a bad draw.
You talking about Wichita State?
Yeah, Wichita State.
Okay, they should have been a higher seed.
Yeah.
Who picked Florida?
Shut up, Omar.
Florida State.
Florida? Oh, you talking about Florida State?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, if you ask me, for NCAA standards, to me it's a big barrel roll belly flop because that's why they watch this because it's one and done. You want to see the Cinderella stories, and there hasn't been any. Like no real ones where it's like, okay, this is exciting. We want to see this, how far they can go. Like that's why you watch. And now it's almost. I mean, it's good basketball. Like you said, it's better than NBA basketball, always is. But that excitement to me is missing.
I would give it a hit, mainly because Duke lost.
Talk about it.
But I think what's compensating for that, Omar, is that the star players are really coming out and shining. Lonzo Ball, the dude Jackson from Kansas got busy, along with Frank Mason. So we don't have the upsets, but we got the stars coming out and playing every night. And for me, it's great to watch.
All right. Newsworthy or nothing to see here. Now, I would say probably one of the biggest stories besides the Kaepernick story is this whole kerfuffle that's going on around NBA players.
That motherfucker.
NBA players sitting out of games. And it seems like it reached a crescendo when this past weekend, Cleveland Cavaliers going against the Los Angeles Clippers, ABC primetime game, LeBron, Kevin Love, Kyrie Irving did not play. Is this newsworthy, or really is this nothing to see here? Because the argument is really centered around the competing interest of the NBA with their TV sponsorships and then players that are trying to preserve themselves for a playoff run.
My question is, it's too late because they just signed a new bargaining agreement, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
it takes effect next year, but yes, it's already signed.
This was something they should have addressed in the new bargaining agreement, but also it's not newsworthy because there hasn't been enough fan backlash. When people are sick of it, they'll stop going to games. That's when it will change. Because as a fan, I demand more from my team. I don't want to pay money for a game and then go and the stars sit out. I would be pissed off. Then I would start boycotting.
Tickets is too damn expensive.
I want my money back.
I'm all against any sort of mandate by league making players do do anything.
If you are healthy, if you are not suspended, then you have to play. You getting paid millions to play. Sorry.
Man.
He getting warmed up.
Say what your chest.
He's definitely getting warmed up, isn't he? As we
I didn't hear no bell.
there we go. As we segue on to our next segment, Is You With It or Nah? Today, on our debate segment, we have two new combatants. Today we have Les versus Omar in a discussion about should college athletes be paid? Yes or no? So what we're going to do here, we're going to have Mr. Les being the only one who has actually won a debate definitively this far in the season to choose his call in the air. I'm flipping the coin.
Tails.
It's tails.
It is heads, which means Omar has won the toss. Which position do you want to take, sir?
I'm taking pay. I'm
Okay.
taking pay. Pay the athletes.
So Les, you get to choose the position.
I don't even know why you asked.
Wait, hold on a second.
Go.
I take it back. I'm gonna take not to pay.
You already chose.
Okay.
Whoa.
I was
It
trying to give you a
don't
ball.
already said-
don't matter.
Who's going first, sir?
Oh, go first.
O goes first.
He ain't been the same since Jay-Z left, so he let me go first. Wow!
All right.
It's the Rock.
All right, count down. 3, 2, 1. Omar, your clock's here.
All right. So, I think this argument has been argued in nauseum that, and I think the worm has turned. It is time to get these athletes paid. You got this multi-million conglomerate, the gangsters of all gangsters making billions. Now, to go against, they say that it would bankrupt schools. And truthfully, it's utter nonsense. It just takes certain steps. The problem is they don't want to take step A because they're scared of what step B is. You can't never get to step B until you make it step A. First step, it could be something like revenue sharing, where the D1s, because you can't tell me they can't afford it. We know they can afford it. D1s, D2s. Now, what you need is a cap. Like in basketball, the cap would be $65,000. Football, the cap is $3 million. Nobody in the power conferences would have a problem paying that cap. John Harbaugh makes $7 million as a coach. Cap the coach's salary. I would rather the players get paid with that $3 million and John Harbaugh only gets paid $3 million. You gonna cap the coach's salary? You gonna have a cap for the basketball players and the football players. And then what you do is you have it so you leave it to school. You leave it to the schools to say how much each player can get. So that's part of their recruiting. They say, well, you can only get this much. You can only get that much. So some schools may be better at recruiting. They may give their star players more, so he knows he's going to go there. But you still leave that certain things up to the schools. All you do is you cap how much they can get paid. Then you bring the boosters in. If you want to go over the cap, the boosters have to pay the money. So the better the boosters, the better the money for the players to come get recruited.
Who does John Harbaugh coach?
You know I meant Jim.
I was just
You
going to
know I meant Jim.
Les, I'm going to count you down. Your timer's here. 3, 2, 1.
All right. Now, you hear about all these billions that the NCAA makes. But in all honesty, there's no real money for them to pay these players. First off, out of 228 Division I schools, 23 of them operated in the black in all athletic programs for their school. Only 23. 205 schools operated in the red. So there you go. 205 schools can't afford to pay. Now, you look at things like, let's take UCLA. They have 23 varsity programs between the men and women. Only the basketball team and the football team brings in 90% of the revenue. So do you just pay the basketball players and football players? Imagine if you don't play women's soccer or women's softball. That's going to cause a problem in the school. with only 23 teams operating in black, imagine if, like you were talking about, let's take Alabama. They made $143 million. Guess what? 95% coming from football. So if you take that and say, you guys can pay because the other ones can't pay, then every year Alabama's going to be in a national championship. And guess what? Not only that, they're going to be in the NCAA Final Four because they have the money to pay them. So you take it and you want to say they have all this money, but in actuality, they don't. That's it.
That's a lie.
All right. So, we're going to talk to our judge here today, which is Ambassador Kenny Ken, and let's hope this time we can come up with a definitive winner.
Let me tell you something. I skipped over my whole first paragraph. I couldn't even find it. I was talking and trying to find it in my notes, and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, because your debate sounded shitty.
Yeah,
however,
I started in the middle.
yeah, that's exactly what it sounded like. That's exactly what it sounded like. You started in the middle. Yes, my bias was confirmed, and Omar won the debate for the simple fact that, Les, your argument sounds like an accounting problem, not a money problem. It sounds like 205 schools need to go to their business schools and go recruit these kids to get their books in order, because there's money to be made. Omar won the debate, in my opinion, and definitely confirmed my bias, which is that you need to pay these kids.
So my question to you, Les, is if Alabama's making that much money and they can't afford to pay anybody, where the fuck is the money going?
I didn't say Alabama couldn't afford to pay. Alabama can afford to pay. It's them other 205 that can't.
I think in my opinion, it's as simple as you don't even have to ration it by sports or by how much money a particular sport brings in. If you just had a standard stipend across the board, I think that would go a long way towards fixing things. But it can be done. It should be done.
At least. I mean, especially when you got the tournament is making. They have an $8.8 billion with a B TV deal with CBS, and then you have I don't know if you guys remember when Shabazz Napier came out a couple years ago and admitted to going hungry some nights, so going to bed without eating, but then he has to turn around and play at the top level of the tournament.
He also had a Gucci backpack at the same damn time, so I don't want to hear that from Shabazz.
I bet you he didn't buy it though.
It was left at his front door.
All right, so now we're going to move on to our diplomatic immunity segment. Ambassador Chef, take it away.
All right, guys. So this is our segment where we interact with our viewers, either through our Facebook Live or the weird text that I've been getting throughout the show. So I'm only going to pick one of the troll questions. I have
Be first, though.
I have Anonymous who wants Les to really spell social.
SOCIAL. There you go.
All right. I got a question here. Which heading into the Sweet 16, we have 7 seed Carolina, South Carolina against Baylor, or 7 seed Michigan against Oregon. Go around the table. Which 7 seed you guys think can pull an upset? South Carolina or Michigan?
I'm going to say Michigan.
Michigan
Looked pretty good.
I think they both can. Actually, I think both of them are actually going to win.
That German dude is nice.
Yeah.
Wagner.
Wagner.
Hey, Wagner. His name is Moritz Wagner. His name is Moritz Wagner. Derek Walton. I think they both can win. But on the South Carolina side, Sid Darius Thornwell is legit. Will be a first-round pick. He was a problem for Duke. I believe he's going to be a problem. Whether he's got an all-around game. And Frank the Tank Martin, who check out his story. He's got a great story.
Why is there always a tank in there?
Because it's Frank. Because he's built like a tank, and he dresses with curtains. But he's a great coach, and he's got South Carolina rock and roll. I think they'll both win.
What else we got, Kev?
All right, last question. I don't know if we have enough time for everybody to get as involved in this as I would like, but Jay from right here in Baltimore is asking, Triple G versus Daniel Jacobs. Was the fight really unanimous as the judges scored it?
Yes.
What do you?
I say yes. 114, 113 sound about right with the knockdown. I do have to see it again because I had different kind of odds that night.
Tell your story.
It's cold.
But I had the same. I had the same thing. 114, 113.
Did you say Eddie Buzz?
Eddie Buzz.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was a very close fight. It was a great fight, but I think it was clear Golovkin won.
It's people get excited because Jacobs won the moral battle, but
Yeah, he didn't die.
he lost the fight.
Yeah, and I think
his cancer didn't come back.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah.
Everybody had such low expectations
expectations
of
for him.
Jacobs. He outseeded those expectations, so you feel like. Because even as I was watching the fight, like I found myself really actively rooting, like, yo, go get it then.
I mean, I was already a Jacobs fan, but now I am a true fan of Daniel Jacobs.
Yeah.
The bigger question is, did Chocolatito lose or not? But that's another show.
Uh-oh.
That is another show. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us with Confirmation Bias. Please follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And subscribe to our social networks. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. And tell us, was your bias confirmed?
That too.
Man,
That too.
Les had a rough day.
Totally Tober.